Buccaneers rookie running back Bucky Irving has been on a tear recently, scoring 27 plus full PPR fantasy points in each of the past 2 weeks. But really, for the entirety of the season, he's been incredibly efficient with his touches. And so, what did we see from him coming out? What was his profile? What are his strengths and weaknesses? And what do we see from him on film? And finally, what can we project as his high end outcome as a fantasy player? Watch till the end of the video and you'll know. Bucky Irving was selected in the fourth round of this year's NFL draft out of Oregon. Coming out, he displayed really good contact balance. He was very shifty and had a good feel for open space. The only issue was on film, he didn't look like he was the fastest in terms of his top shelf or his long speed, really. And he just obviously was a pretty small guy. And so those were two really big red flags in terms of predicting running back production. Well, he's 5'9", 192. That gives him a 28.4 BMI. In general, for fantasy, we prefer our running backs to be 30.0 or greater in terms of their BMI. It generally allows for you to receive more opportunities and stay healthy, assuming you are able to stay healthy. His age definitely wasn't a concern. 22 years and 3 months old at this current time isn't old or anything, and he was 21 when he was drafted. Early declare, so we like that, but it really doesn't matter that much for running backs. But this next part is what was the biggest red flag, because while a 4.55 isn't a death sentence for a running back, being 5'9" and 192 and running a 4.55, that's really not very good, and his speed score indicates that. His 89.6 speed score is 27th percentile, so really low. And then his burst score of 107.7 is 7th percentile as well. And so I think what I and a lot of other people fell into was proper process, actually, and that most running backs who have very poor athletic profiles, in terms of by NFL standards at least, and are smaller, are really bad bets in terms of the amount of such running backs that hit at the NFL level. Somebody with a profile somewhat like this is Kyron Williams, who's also been a big hit. But when you look around the landscape at all of the top running backs, pretty much all of them are elite athletes, even by NFL standards. And so it means that you just have to be extremely technically proficient as a running back if you aren't blessed with the athleticism of some of these other guys. And so that's what makes him even more impressive, in my opinion. His 132 rush attempts are only 28th, but his rush yards of 727 are 17th, so much more than his in terms of his ranking there versus his rush attempts. His 5.5 yards per attempt are fourth in the entire NFL, at least among players who had at least 50 rush attempts. His PFF rushing grade of 84.2 is 10th. His yards after contact per attempt of 4.17 is second. His 38 missed tackles forced is tied for 10th, which is even more impressive when you think about that he's only had 132 carries, which is 28th. His explosive rushes of 10 or more of 18 or 16th. His breakaway run percentage of 34.9 is 7th. And so overall, as a runner of the football, he is looking elite. And the only stats in which he isn't really elite at are just total opportunity and raw yardage. So yeah, but it gets even better when you look at him as a receiver. His PFF receiving grade of 90.3 is first among the entire NFL landscape. His 36 targets are tied for 18th. That's fine. His 35 receptions are tied for 10th. So that means only one time all year when Bucky Irving's been targeted, he didn't come down with it. His 285 receiving yards are 10th, but his 1.73 yards per out run are tied for third. Very impressive. His 6 total touchdowns are 18th, and in a full PPR setting at this current point in time, he has 14.2 full PPR points per week, which is 16th in the NFL. But I have a feeling that's going to creep up inside the top 10 by the end of the season, because he is on a tear recently, getting more utilization and looking even better with the more usage that he gets. And so when we think about it, he really didn't receive the best draft capital. He was really small. By NFL standards, especially for a running back, he is incredibly unathletic. But then the advanced stats tell us that this guy is an elite runner and receiver. But what does the film say? Let's take a look. All right, so on this first clip, we got Bucky in the slot right now, at least. This play is going to be an excellent example of his vision, his short area agility, his burst, and just his contact balance as well. This is beautiful. So what he's going to do is go in motion, then as the ball's hiked, he's going to get a handoff from Baker. What you're going to get from the offensive line is this right guard is going to seal this defensive tackle, then you're going to get Tristan Wirfs pulling to get the D end here. You're going to get your right tackle and center to the second level, and then you're going to get blocking by your wide receivers. Bucky is going to have no room right here, yet he is going to finesse his way in between two blockers, and then use his vision to work his way down the sideline here. This is just magnificent. So he goes into motion. Look at this. Slips through two blockers, sheds a tackle, regains his balance, and cuts outward. He doesn't have the long speed, and he didn't have the angle regardless to house that, but still very impressive running. And his tape is littered with plays just like this. He might not be Derrick Henry when it comes to being a humongous running back, but a lot of the skills that you really want in your top shelf running backs, such as vision, contact balance, short area agility, he possesses in spades. All right, so is Bucky Irving perfect? No, this play is an example of that. So he intends to run in the B gap in between the right guard and the right tackle. However, Jalen Carter exists, and so that's just not going to happen on this play. Jalen Carter is going to block the right tackle into the gap in which he was intending to run, which leaves him two choices. You wouldn't know it at this point in the play, but he is going to have a potential opportunity in the B gap here in between the tackle and guard. However, there is going to be an unblocked safety, and the lineman that gets into the second level of the defense hasn't quite blocked this linebacker, so there are two potential candidates to tackle him in this gap. But if he had gone C gap here in between the tackle and the tight end, he potentially goes untouched for a touchdown. And so I'll show you what I mean. All right, so right here, Jalen Carter is making this run very difficult by completely blocking that. So what he could do is go in these B gap here, but there's a safety, and the linebacker hasn't quite been blocked, so you don't know that at this point. But if you look on this side, number 3 on the defense is blocked. You have Chris Godwin coming in to block this guy. There is a decent chance he walks in untouched. But what he's going to do is run into the back of his lineman, and at that point, this gap is just not an option. And he's going to find that this one closes quickly, but at least after running into the back of his offensive lineman, he chooses the correct gap. And so he ends up getting 2 yards and is tackled at the 1. But if his instincts had served him a little bit better and he would have reacted quicker and gone to the C gap on the right side, that probably was a walk-in touchdown. So once again, nothing ridiculous. The gap closed up really quickly because of Jalen Carter, but if he had read that a little bit better, he probably has a walk-in touchdown. All right, taking a look at this play, Bucky Irving is supposed to be running D gap in between his tight end and his wide receiver here. So first of all, Mike Evans misses his block. He was supposed to create a seal here. This defensive end is going to crash inwards and is going to get double teamed by K. Dotton and Tristan Wirfs. This tight end is going to go in motion and block, but because Mike Evans misses his block, he's going to have to block Mike Evans' guy here. Then Mike Evans is going to try to turn around and block for him. So Bucky Irving here is going to display some good burst, some good contact balance. The only thing is, with the contact balance, you need to have ball security as well. And so this is a play that could happen to anybody, but I'm going to show you what I mean. So right here, he is dead to rights, but he figures out a way to sneak out of that tackle, which this play is a negative, but there's absolutely positives to it. So he gets out of it, but you're going to notice he loses his balance a little bit and leans forward. And because of that, doesn't have the ball tucked high enough and tight enough. And so Jesse Bates is going to force a fumble here, and the Falcons scoop it up. And so what was an incredibly impressive play, considering nothing went as it should have for him, he is a victim of not holding the ball high and tight enough, and as a result of that, you have a turnover. So ball security, well, that can happen to anybody, and it's not like he was just flinging the ball willy-nilly, but you still have to be high and tight no matter the circumstance, because plays like that will happen over and over again if you're not. All right, so I had to work really hard to find a couple negative plays. It took 2 seconds to find a great play from Bucky. So first we're going to get Chris Godwin, who's going to go in motion and get a running start before blocking. Then you're going to get some pulling action by the right guard, as well as Kate Otten, the tight end. And Bucky Irving's job is to follow behind them, and he does a fantastic job of that. This play is going to be an excellent example of his vision, contact balance, creativity as a runner, and his ability in small spaces to make the most out of every yard. This is some incredible running, and I'll explain more as I go. So one thing I really like is how he presses the back of the tight end here, Kate Otten. He's making it really tough for the defenders to know where he is. Then he's going to shake off a tackle, stiff arm the crap out of that cornerback, cut inside and avoid the cornerback on the end, stop on a dime and cut to the right, cut again. I mean, look at this running. And then Baker Mayfield, of all people, of course, we love Baker. He becomes a blocker too. I mean, everything is on display on this run. Just beautiful. I really love the creativity by Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator. Man, the pulling action they get on some of these runs is really impressive. And so is Baker Mayfield. So yeah, beautiful display of contact balance, creativity as a runner, vision, and just using your blocker to make it really challenging for the defenders to know where you are. It was all on display on this run. If you like what you're hearing and seeing so far, feel free to like and subscribe. It's a free and easy way to support the channel, and I'd really appreciate it. If you like these player breakdowns where we take a look at their profiles, their usage, their strengths and weaknesses, as well as what we see from them on film, just like and subscribe. And if there's somebody that you want me to make a video on, feel free to suggest somebody below in the comment section. Thanks. Did I mention that Bucky Irving has a really good jump cut? Well, if not, he does. On this play, you're going to get some misdirection. Sterling Shepard is going to go in motion and run towards this side of the field to hopefully get the 49ers defense distracted towards this side. Then they're going to toss it to Bucky. They're going to get a lot of these linemen and the pieces remaining on this side of the field in terms of playmakers pulling. And so what he's going to do is masterfully, he doesn't even have to stop or alter his speed whatsoever. Through all of his blockers, weave his way, and then at the end, he makes a nasty jump cut inside for a touchdown. So once again, this play is a beautiful display of his acceleration, his vision, and his jump cut ability. Look at that. Way too easy. And you knew I had to include his 56-yard run, right? So you're going to get some pulling action by both the left and the right guard, and he's going to run off tackle this way following his blockers. He's going to shake off a tackle, cut all the way across the field for 56 yards here. This is a good display of his contact balance, vision, and burst once again. And you'll notice a theme here. They like to use him off tackle quite a bit. I don't think it's that surprising. If I had to guess, it's almost certainly because he's not the biggest, most imposing back. And so he's not going to, in general, be quite as effective in between the tackles. But boy, is he effective outside the tackles. And shout out to Baker Mayfield. This is the second time he's been, 30 yards down the field making a block. Oh, this guy, Baker Mayfield, is everything you want in a teammate. And he probably sprung him for 10 more yards too. This isn't about Baker Mayfield though. And shout out to him as well, celebrating with Bucky. And so, yeah, in review, he really is amazing off tackle, whether it's a toss or a stretch, no matter what the action is behind the run. He has very good vision most of the time. He has fantastic contact balance. He has a really good jump cut. And besides elite size and really breakaway speed, he has just about everything you would want in a runner of the football. I know what you're thinking. All right, he's a really good runner of the football, but how is he as a pass catcher? Really good. So he is going to get a play action fake from Baker before heading out to the flat. Then he's going to catch the ball, survey the field, and in an instant, and I mean an instant, completely works his way through multiple defenders to get to this side of the field before heading upfield. It's pretty good blocking, but man, is he crafty with the football in his hands. And this play is fantastic. All right, so Baker's in trouble, so he gets him out, and he makes that catch away from his body, too, outside of his frame, turns around, surveys what's happening, and look at this. Crazy. If he was just a little bit faster, that is potentially a long touchdown. Still, really impressive nonetheless. I really love his vision works just as well in the receiving game as it does in the running game, and that is very good. And so, yeah, just like he does when he's running the football, after he becomes a receiver, he is able to fully cut across the entire field, dodge and weave in between multiple defenders, and get chunk gains in the passing game as well. And it's only fitting that the last play I show you has some really high highs, but also something really dangerous in it. So on this play, Cade Otton is going to go in motion. Then he's going to swing out and become a lead blocker for a swing screen to Bucky Irving. You're going to get two little curls by these two wide receivers who will then turn into blockers. And Bucky is going to weave his way magically all the way around the field just like he normally does. And he almost loses a fumble here because he's not high and tight with the football. So we'll start with the positives. You get Otton in motion. He's going to be a lead blocker. All right, so at this point, jukes the defender out of his shoes, cuts again. Good feel for space. But notice how he's running with this football. Is that high and tight? I don't think so. And is he fortunate. Props to him for, at the end of the play, holding onto the football. But man, that was dangerous. And so that is a consistent thing we see here on film, is that he does need to be tighter with the football. If defenders realize that you are not somebody who consistently does this, they are going to purposefully aim for the football, which, besides the fact the defender who was coming up to tackle him from behind was just going to try to get the football regardless, you don't need to make his job easier. But as we've seen on film here, he, in my opinion, he is a top 5 player in space in the entire NFL right now. He possesses one of the nastier jump cuts. He has an amazing feel for space. He uses and sets up his blockers really, really well. While we did see a little bit of inconsistency in terms of his improvisational ability at the goal line a couple plays back, when he does get the ball in open space, it is impossible to tackle him. The only thing most people on the field, especially in the secondary, have on him is just overt speed. But if he touches the ball, it is a threat for a 30-yard gain each and every single time. And so, what are we to think of Bucky Irving? Well, he's quite the interesting player. Being 5'9", 192 with a 28.4 BMI, that's really not somebody that should be excelling with more usage, that's for sure. But then also being somebody that's 5'9", 192, running a 4.55 40-yard dash with a 27th percentile speed score and a 7th percentile burst score. That's really somebody that should not be excelling by any stretch of the imagination, at least when you take a look at most players with this athleticism. And so that makes his 5.5 yards per attempt, which is fourth, his 10th overall PFF rushing grade, his 4.17 yards after contact per attempt, which is second, his 38 missed tackles forced, his 90.3 PFF receiving grade, which is first, and finally his 34.9 breakaway run percentage, which is seventh, even more impressive. And those advanced stats are absolutely backed up with what we see from him on film. He's extremely shifty. He has a good feel for open space. He has a nasty jump cut, really good vision, and he's the complete back in terms of his rushing and receiving ability. We see that as a receiver, he immediately turns into the running back that we see running the football. And on film, we also saw that there were some negatives. We saw in that one goal line run where the B gap was blocked up by Jalen Carter, and if he would have seen that the C gap was open, he potentially had a walk-in touchdown. And then we also saw that he was a little bit loose with the football on film, and that's going to lead to some fumbles. And if one thing about that is there's a real concern that if he doesn't clean that up, defenders aim for the ball a lot more. And if he does fumble a little bit more, there is the possibility of him getting benched. He's nowhere near that point in time right now, but that is a theoretical concern because there have to be some negatives, right, with all of the positives that there are about him. So I just want to say I'm extremely high on him as a player. But what is his high-end outcome for us in fantasy? Well, while I don't think that they're the same player from a body standpoint, I do view his potential ceiling outcome as an Alvin Kamara type of player, where you give him, 10 to 15, maybe at max 18 carries per game. You give him 3 to 5 receptions a game, and you have somebody that can easily eclipse 100 total yards. He has a nose for the end zone. He's very shifty in space, and just like Kamara, he has a lot of that contact balance. And so I think that in fantasy, if he is able to retain the role, if the offense continues to flow, there is the potential for Liam Cohen to leave after this year for a head coaching gig, or maybe I doubt he would have a lateral move as an offensive coordinator somewhere else, but you never know. So there's the possibility that the OC won't be the same. So that is something to note because we saw with Dameon Pierce, for instance, when Bobby Sloak was brought into town, Joe Mixon is a much better fit for the scheme than Dameon Pierce is. And so obviously that is a potential concern, but this guy is so good off tackle and so good in the receiving game that I can't imagine that he really has any trouble in terms of being phased out of an offense by any stretch of the imagination. But to be fair, that is something to think about. But yeah, I see his ceiling outcome as being a perennial threat to be a top 5 back if he retains this role and if the offense looks good. But what do you think? Do you think I'm a little bit too high on him? Do you think I'm a little bit low on him? Let me know below in the comment section and let me know why. With that being said, if you like what you've seen and heard in this video, feel free to like and subscribe. It's a free and easy way to support the channel, and I'd really appreciate it. And if there's anybody else you would like to see a video made for, just let me know below in the comment section. Thanks.